What's the craziest thing you've seen a parent do to protect their child? When I was working as a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital, we had this 8-year-old patient named Emma whose mom was always perfectly dressed and spoke with this quiet authority that made everyone listen. The little girl had been hospitalized for 3 weeks with a rare autoimmune condition called systemic lupus that was attacking her kidneys and liver. Her treatment required a very specific immunosuppressive medication that had to be administered every 4 hours exactly. Not 3.5 hours. Not 4.5 hours. Exactly 4 hours. Or her immune system would spiral out of control and start destroying her organs. Her mother had provided us with a detailed 3-page protocol, emergency contact numbers for 5 different specialists, and even laminated cards explaining the exact symptoms to watch for. She'd personally walked every nurse through the timing requirements and stressed that missing even one dose by more than 30 minutes could trigger organ failure within hours. I remember thinking she was a bit intense, but after seeing what this disease could do to kids, I understood why she was so thorough. Everyone on our floor knew the protocol by heart. We'd set multiple alarms, double-checked with each other, and treated Emma's medication schedule like it was the most important thing in the world. Everyone except our new night supervisor, Patricia. Patricia had just transferred from the adult cardiac unit and made it clear from day one that she thought pediatric nursing was babysitting with medical licenses. She was convinced that parents were too controlling and that most childhood conditions were exaggerated by helicopter parents who didn't understand real medicine. Within her first week, she started making comments about how overly dramatic some of our protocols were. She'd roll her eyes when we'd explain specific patient needs and mutter things like, "In cardiac, we don't coddle people like this." But what really worried me was how she started adjusting medication schedules to fit her convenience. She'd delay treatments by 30 minutes here, an hour there, claiming she was optimizing workflow and that rigid timing is unnecessary micromanagement. I tried talking to her about Emma specifically, explaining the severity of her condition, but Patricia just waved me off. I've been a nurse for 15 years. I think I know how to manage medications without a parent holding my hand. The crisis happened on a Friday night in October. It was around 11 p.m. and Emma's next dose was due at midnight sharp. I just finished my shift and was getting ready to hand off to the night team when I realized Patricia was the only supervisor on duty. My stomach dropped because I knew she didn't take Emma's protocol seriously. I stayed an extra 20 minutes to personally brief the night nurse about Emma's medication, but Patricia overheard and pulled me aside. "Stop undermining my authority. These parents have you all wrapped around their fingers. I'll handle the medications my way." I wanted to argue, but Patricia outranked me, so I reluctantly left, hoping she'd follow the protocol just this once. What I found out later made my blood run cold. Despite clear orders posted on Emma's chart, Patricia deliberately delayed the girl's critical medication by 3 hours because she was too busy updating patient files and didn't want to be interrupted. When Emma started showing early symptoms of immune system distress, Patricia dismissed it as attention-seeking behavior learned from an overprotective mother. The little girl had been pressing her call button repeatedly, telling anyone who'd listen that something felt wrong. Her temperature started climbing, her joints were aching, and she was getting that pale, sweaty look that we'd been specifically warned about. But Patricia actually rolled her eyes when Emma asked for help and said, "Stop being so dramatic, sweetie. Your mommy isn't here to baby you, so you need to toughen up like a big girl." When Emma's condition started rapidly deteriorating around 3 a.m. and the cardiac monitors began alarming, Patricia still refused to call the attending physician or administer the overdue medication. She told the night nurse, "I'm not waking up a doctor at 3 in the morning because a spoiled brat is having a tantrum. Kids always get worse at night for attention. She'll be fine by morning." That's when Emma's mother walked through the door. She'd been driving back from a business trip in another state and decided to stop by for a surprise early morning visit before heading home to shower and change. She told us she might come by, but Patricia had either forgotten or didn't care. What this woman found when she walked into room 314 will haunt me forever. Her daughter was in severe autoimmune distress, running a 103-degree fever, with machines beeping frantically as her blood pressure spiked and her kidney function crashed. Emma was crying and shaking, begging for someone to help her, while Patricia sat at the nurse's station 30 feet away, calmly filing her nails and updating Facebook on her phone. The mother took one look at her dying child, checked the medication chart that showed the 3-hour delay, then walked directly to Patricia with this eerily calm expression that should have terrified anyone with half a brain. "Excuse me," she said in this perfectly controlled voice. "Who made the decision to delay my daughter's midnight medication?" Patricia didn't even look up from her phone. "I did. The schedule needed adjusting for optimal workflow. These rigid timings are unnecessary. And you're aware this delay could cause organ failure?" Patricia finally looked up with this smug smile. "Ma'am, I've been doing this for 15 years. I think I know more about medication management than a worried parent reading internet articles." That's when Emma's mother pulled out her phone, opened what looked like a recording app, and said 5 words that changed everything. "You're under arrest for child endangerment." Patricia laughed. Actually laughed. "Lady, you can't arrest anyone. You're not a cop." The mother held up her badge. "I'm Assistant District Attorney Sarah Chen, Federal Prosecutor's Office. I've been recording this conversation and I've already texted federal agents who are currently in the parking lot." Patricia's face went from smug to terrified in about 2 seconds. She started stammering about policies and procedures, but the prosecutor held up her hand. "You deliberately withheld life-saving medication from a child under federal protection, ignored medical protocols designed to prevent organ failure, and demonstrated willful negligence that endangers a minor's life. That's felony child endangerment under federal jurisdiction." While Patricia was still trying to process what was happening, 2 federal agents in suits walked onto our floor and calmly placed her in handcuffs. She kept insisting this was all a misunderstanding, that she was just doing her job, but they read her rights and escorted her out while she cried about her nursing license. negligence. Meanwhile, the prosecutor had already called Emma's specialist, who rushed in to stabilize her condition with emergency medications. Thank God we caught it in time, but Emma spent another week in ICU recovering from what should have been completely preventable complications. But here's what made this legendary throughout our entire hospital system. The prosecutor didn't stop with just arresting Patricia. She used her federal connections to launch a comprehensive investigation into medication protocols at every hospital in our state. She discovered that Patricia had been doing this at her previous hospital too, putting dozens of children at risk with her workflow optimizations. Within 6 months, Patricia was not only fired and criminally charged, but permanently banned from any healthcare position involving children. Her nursing license was revoked, and she's now facing federal charges that could mean 5 to 10 years in prison. The prosecutor also pushed through new federal legislation requiring hospitals to install automated medication tracking systems for pediatric patients with critical timing requirements. Every delay over 15 minutes now triggers automatic alerts to department heads and parents. Emma recovered completely and is now a healthy teenager who wants to become a nurse herself. Her mother still sends our department thank you cards every year on the anniversary of that night. But what really gets me is how this could have been prevented if Patricia had just listened to the people who knew better, instead of letting her ego endanger a child's life. That federal prosecutor became the reason hospitals nationwide now have better protections for kids like Emma. And honestly, Patricia had it coming. The whole experience changed how I look at parent advocacy too. Before this happened, I sometimes thought some parents were being overly anxious or demanding about their kids' care. But watching Emma's mother fight a broken system to protect her daughter taught me that sometimes parents know things we don't, and their persistence isn't paranoia, it's love. I still work at the same hospital, and we have Emma's mother's photo hanging in our break room with a plaque that reads, "Never underestimate a parent's instinct." New nurses get trained on this case during orientation, and we call it the Emma Protocol when we talk about following medication timing to the minute. Patricia tried to appeal her conviction and get her nursing license back, claiming she was just trying to be efficient and didn't mean to hurt anyone. The appeals court denied her request unanimously, with the judge stating that professional negligence that endangers children cannot be excused by claims of good intentions or workflow optimization. Emma's mother also successfully sued the hospital for failing to properly supervise Patricia, despite multiple red flags about her attitude toward pediatric protocols. The settlement was substantial enough that our hospital completely overhauled their supervision policies and now requires specialized pediatric training for anyone working with children, regardless of their previous experience in other departments. The most amazing part is what happened to Emma herself. Not only did she make a complete recovery, but she became this incredible advocate for other kids with chronic illnesses. She started a blog called Little Warriors, where she shares stories about brave kids fighting serious diseases. And her mother helped her create a nonprofit that provides emergency communication devices to families dealing with complex medical conditions. When Emma turned 16 last year, she came back to visit our unit and thanked every nurse who had taken care of her. She told us she remembered that night clearly, and how scared she was when Patricia wouldn't help her, but also how proud she felt watching her mother stand up for her so powerfully. "My mom taught me that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even when people in authority positions tell you you're wrong," Emma said. "That night showed me that love makes people brave, and I want to be that brave for other kids someday." She's planning to study medicine and specialize in pediatric autoimmune disorders, specifically because of her experience with the healthcare system. Her goal is to become the kind of doctor who listens to both parents and patients, and who never lets bureaucracy get in the way of proper care. The ripple effects of that one night continue to this day. Patricia's case became a precedent that's been cited in dozens of other medical negligence cases involving children. Law schools now use it as an example of how federal prosecutors can intervene in state-level healthcare violations when children's lives are at stake. Our hospital also partnered with the prosecutor's office to create a rapid response system for reporting suspected medical neglect. Parents now have a direct hotline to federal authorities if they believe their child's care is being compromised by hospital staff who won't follow proper protocols. Looking back, I realized that Patricia wasn't just a bad nurse having a bad night. She was someone who had fundamentally lost sight of why we do this job in the first place. We're not here to make our own lives easier or to prove how much we know. We're here to protect the most vulnerable people during their scariest moments. Emma's mother could have just demanded better care and left it at that. Instead, she used her position and expertise to make sure no other family would ever face what they went through. That's the kind of parent every child deserves, and the kind of advocate every patient needs when the system fails them. Sometimes it takes someone with real power refusing to back down to create the change that protects everyone else. Patricia learned that the hard way, and honestly, every other healthcare worker who puts their convenience above patient safety should take note. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing more dangerous than someone in a position of authority who thinks they know better than the people whose lives depend on them getting it right.